So, anyone who's been keeping an eye on my videos lately will know that I've spent the basically last 3 months now back in the UK. And the reason I came back was because my dad passed away. And I just wanted to share some reflections on what I've discovered while I've been back. How I think actually Northumbria, where I am, is kind of a sign of why England deserves to be saved, and how, despite everything you hear in the media about the UK being a war zone and a complete disaster, that story is very much told from the people in the cities. Once you get out of the cities, the UK is still a beautiful, wonderful place, at least in most part. So I'm going to give you a little tour of Northumbria, of the key places I found here, some cool castles, Roman ruins, nice villages, and give you a bit of an insight into my journey. Dzień dobry and welcome to A Brit in Poland. With this channel, I travel across the country, I bring you the culture, and I show you just how amazing Poland is. So I invite you on my journey. If you want to see more, I have Facebook and Instagram profiles, which you will find links to in the description below. And if you want to really help out, you can turn to my Patreon or Patronite accounts, again in the description. Thank you very much. I hope you enjoy this video. Please like, share and subscribe. Do zobaczenia. Okay, so first we're going to do a little summary of why I came back and the main things I've been doing. So, as mentioned, I came back because my dad passed away. I knew my family was hurting a lot, as was I, and it kind of made sense to spend some time with them. The original plan with this time was to, spend a few months with my dad before he went, but unfortunately, life decided that that's not what the focus was going to be in the end. So most of the time I've been back, I've been helping out around the house. This has been one of my core duties, helping a little bit to go through paperwork, but also sorting through things. And when I say sorting through things, I mean going through my dad's stuff. We identified a lot of different components of his life, some of it shared with us, that needed to be taken care of. The sort of stuff that, although it's special and a lot of it had, let's say, like significant emotional value, it isn't the sort of stuff that you can realistically keep hold of forever, and maybe there are better homes for it. So, for example, when we were going through his stuff and his parents' stuff in the garage, we discovered that there was this collection of old cars. So, like Dinky, Corgi, Matchbox, stuff from like maybe the 50s and 60s, maybe earlier, that was actually, still boxed and in good condition. So we decided, okay, maybe we can do something with that. So I spent my time cataloguing that, went back through his old records. I think, my last video on this topic covered that. And what else? So there was, oh yes, and there was the BBC micro stuff, which again required a lot of sorting, digging a few things out of the garage to make sure we had everything. And, each piece brought back some memory of Dad. I mean, with the toy cars, maybe not so much, but took me back to my childhood playing with Transformers. And I think I did have a few like Matchbox cars and things, which, oh God, I was terrible. I think I destroyed a lot of them. Don't know what was wrong with me back then. And of course, memories of him teaching me stuff on the BBCB, a bit of programming, a few games. So, yeah, fond memories there. And of course, looking at the records, it made me think of the times that, like, my dad would, say, be in his study filing stuff away, and you'd just hear a bit of Beatles or something classical like Holst or something like that playing. And you knew he was in his own little world. But coming back wasn't just sorting through my dad's stuff, but it gave me a chance to sort through some of my own stuff as well. And one of the things that I really focused on was a lot of the old Star Trek stuff in my life. So you may be surprised to know that in my teenage years, I was a bit of an outsider. You know, I wasn't really into the popular stuff. I wasn't really into football or music like most kids my age. And I was more into stuff a bit like Games Workshop and Star Trek in particular. And the Star Trek stuff, actually, it was a bit of a lifesaver for me. So not only did it kind of give me an escape where I was able to, you know, just vanish into this world of the future, think about the possibilities of humanity and, you know, wish I was on a starship. But it also gave me a bit of a community. I remember my parents, they found an article in the Oxford Mail about a Star Trek club based in Witney, which was a bit of a drive from Oxford. But my dad took me down there and I got to meet this lovely group of people. I remember there was Dave, who always used to drive me around. Nick was the captain of our group. Chris was like our technical guy, you know, with the, he made lots of cool models with lights and sounds and stuff. And there were people, a couple of Ians, Tim. Yeah, there were a lot of really nice people. And for me, the key thing is it gave me a place where I finally belonged. You know, I got to meet a lot of really cool people who we had a lot in common, talking about stuff that we loved. And it was something a bit special, really, you know, because when you're a bit of an outsider and you finally find your tribe, as it were, it means a lot. Yeah, I used to go to conventions, and I was going through my old autograph collection, and I was surprised by just how many people I met. You know, you forget these things. Like, I primarily went down to, like, there's this thing called the Starfleet Ball in Bournemouth. I think it's called the Sci-Fi Ball or something now, if it's still going. And each convention was like its own little world, you know, a little microcosm. You had the room selling stuff, all of your memorabilia. You had the autographs, but you got to meet some of your favorite characters from Star Trek and other TV series. You had the ball where people would drink, have a nice food, have a bit of a dance. There was always a costume competition, of which I won it one year, dressed as Optimus Prime. And Robert Picardo and Michael Sherd presented me with the winner's certificate, which, yeah, something I'm keeping hold of. But yeah, those conventions, they gave me a lot of happy memories, really. And it was nice to kind of go through my old stuff and reflect on it. It's funny, I took some photos of all the Star Trek memorabilia I brought over the years, and there's a lot more than I expected. Some stuff I think got lost over the years. A few books went to charity shops, which was a shame because they were a nice part of the collection. But ultimately, all of this stuff I've talked about is stuff that's going to be sold to give me, my family, a little bit of extra cash and to help build the future. Of course, while I've been back, I've also spent a bit of time with my brother and my nieces. It's been nice to catch up with them because, like, obviously I don't get to see them so much. And, you know, they're a big part of my life as well. And yeah, we're all dealing with grief in different ways, I think. And of course, I've been helping around the house. I took on a lot of my dad's duties, you know, like doing the washing up, dealing with the rubbish, helping to sort through the garage. And I'm really hoping that by the end of this trip, I'll have really made an impact that will make my mum's life a bit easier. I know she's got some hard times ahead dealing with life, but at least she has a bit of a community around her. But yeah, so that's essentially why I've been back in Northumbria. So next section, let's talk about the sort of things that I've seen while I've been here. So while I've been back, my mum and my brother have been, you know, good enough to take me around some of the main sites. But this video is not going to go into a deep dive on the history of every castle, every fort, every village. No, I reserve that honor for Poland, but it will be giving a bit of a summary of some of the beautiful things you can see in Northumbria and talking a bit about the history here and why this place was very significant historically, essentially forming like a kind of a battlefront between the Romans and the Scots. But much more has happened as well. And I've been to places like Vindolanda, Corbridge, Warkworth Castle, and a few more places you'll see. Each of them has its own charm, each of them representing a slightly different point in history, and all adding to the richness that is the tapestry of Northumbria. So I'll start with Newcastle, of course, the capital of Northumbria. And Newcastle feels like layers laid on top of each other. The castle marks the Norman frontier, built for control and defence. The cathedral reflects civic faith rather than dominance, rooted in community. The university represents learning as continuity, not disruption. And the streets tell the story of industry, decline, reinvention, and resilience. This is a city that adapts without forgetting where it came from. And it's not the biggest city in the UK by far. You know, anyone coming from London, for example, would probably say it's quite small. But one of the things is it is a busy city. You know, you can certainly feel the population density. It's very good for shopping. There are plenty of bars, though I have to admit they seemed overcrowded when I was there. You know, Newcastle feels like one of those places where, you know, they could perhaps double the size of it, and then maybe it would be big enough for the people living there. But at the moment, it stands as, you could say, the most modern and happening part of Northumbria, where you have a lot of young people, a lot of different cultures, you know, a lot of people living together, and yeah, some of the more modern architecture for sure. And I like the fact that it has this like historical, you know, touch to it. And this is what you get with, you know, most places in England, to be honest.
those historical touches which keep you kind of rooted in the heritage of a place. It's not just, oh, a nice building here, a nice building there. It's the history behind those buildings which really tell. And of course, the barriers of peace, which every UK Christmas market is getting used to these days. The Christmas market itself was a little bit small, but nice. And yeah, in Newcastle, you get a real feel of atmosphere. I was lucky that a few friends came to visit me while I was there. So Andy, Chris, Malcolm, Maya, thank you very much for, stopping by and making me feel a little less lonely while I was up in the north. It was good to see some old friends and new friends and to just enjoy a proper night on the town. Bamborough feels ancient in a deeper sense. Long before England was unified, power was exercised from places like this. Exposed, defensive, symbolic. Standing here, you can sense how fragile early authority was and how much effort it took simply to hold ground. It's a reminder that England didn't begin whole, it was assembled slowly and often forcefully. Yeah, when me and Mum were there, they had this very elaborate kind of set of Christmas decorations, a lot of it themed from fairy tales, a lot of like pirate stuff. It was pretty cool, to have all of this elaborate decoration. Reminded me of when I went to Shonch Castle during the Flower Festival. So you didn't just get the elaborate castle, but you got the elaborate decorations in each room, which really added this extra layer of character. And yeah, I may have slipped in the mud when I was viewing that tower, which was a bit frustrating. I was like, okay, good job, we're kind of going home after this. But it was a nice day out. And Amble represents a quieter kind of history, not kings or empires, but working lives shaped by the sea, fishing, trade, routine, generations tied to weather, tides, and uncertainty. Places like this remind me that culture isn't only preserved in monuments, but in habits that quietly endure. And it was nice to see a good old-fashioned sweet shop. Reminded me of this place we had in Oxford. I don't know if it's still there now on the high street. And yeah, to get out to see the sea. I mean, this is the lovely thing about Northumbria. So much is close to the seaside. Corbridge, well, it sits on what was once the edge of the Roman world, a place of roads, trade, and administration, evidence of England's earliest encounter with empire. It reminds us that the foundations of this country weren't purely native, but layered, imported, and adapted. Even now, you can feel how order once radiated outward from here. And the city itself, it had it felt very nice, actually, very orderly. Some, nice old churches and kind of old-fashioned market square type layout. I think we went to a nice delicatessen while we were there. Well, I escaped to do some filming. And it was, on the river as well, hence why it has the bridge in the name, I'm assuming. Most of English place names have some kind of meaning behind it. And the Roman part, it was, Roman. A load of old ruins that have survived some 2,000 odd years. Well, maybe not quite 2,000, but close enough. And you really get like a good sense of what life was like and how much culture was brought. The Romans, they certainly left their mark on the UK. And yeah, being a fan of ancient history and study over it, I approve. Then we took a trip to Durham, and Durham carries the weight of authority. The cathedral and castle rise together, reflecting a time when faith and power were inseparable. This wasn't just a religious centre, but a political one. a place designed to command loyalty and obedience. It shows how belief, architecture, and governance once worked hand in hand to shape the North. And while we were there, we went to one of these light festivals, and I kept thinking of all the the light festivals I've taken part in Poland, because Poland is a masterclass in this kind of thing. But in fairness, they did have some really innovative ideas during this festival. I think tickets were a little bit dear. I can't remember how much Mum paid for them. But they put a big effort. They had a large area to cover with all these lights. So I think they had a nice variety of designs. There were a couple of parts where you thought, maybe I would have done it differently. So Seton Delaval Hall, we'll start with, stands as a reminder of aristocratic ambition, grand, unfinished, and scarred by fire. A symbol of how power, wealth, and legacy don't always endure as intended. And actually, I've been around the hall a few times. My dad used to steward here. So, we walk around talking to the people, and, they'd all have something nice to say about him. And, a few of the people from here actually came to his funeral, which was a nice touch. But Seton Delaval as a whole, it reflects a different chapter of English history. An industrial landscape shaped by coal, labour, and routine. Here, history wasn't dramatic, it was repetitive, physical, and demanding. It's a reminder that England was built as much by ordinary work as by extraordinary events. But, this is primarily where I was based, and it was a very quiet place, but still had 2 pubs and a craft beer place. Nearby, I found this walk of remembrance, which was something meaningful. It's important that we not forget those who came before us and those who sacrificed their lives so that we can have freedom in this one. But yes, beautiful. Now, Vindolanda offers something rare, personal voices from the past, letters that speak of boredom, complaint, friendship, and longing. They strip away abstraction and remind us that Roman Britain wasn't just ruled, but it was lived. History here feels close, human, and unexpectedly familiar. I didn't actually get to properly go on Hadrian's Wall while I was back this time. So Vindolanda was kind of one of the closest things to it. You can sort of see the wall in the distance on the hillside from there. It's very famous for the Vindolanda letters, which, it's the name to fame. And like Corbridge, it's a classic Roman site. I think Corbridge was excavated much sooner than Vindolanda. But here you get a real feel for the kind of countryside and the landscape. And Warkworth combines power with restraint, a stronghold tied to noble ambition, but also to subtle influence and loyalty. It reflects a quieter form of authority, less about conquest, more about position and favour. A reminder that much of history happens without spectacle. But the castle actually was pretty impressive. It's one of the better preserved ruins I've seen actually in the UK. I do like it when they keep the ruin and they don't try to restore it, because it feels more authentic in a way. And it's in this lovely rural landscape. And I just love the weathering effect on the stones here. It's amazing, how they've kind of stood for 1,000 years or so. And the town itself, connected to it, again, had a nice charm to it. We went to a rather nice place for lunch and had a bit of a walk around. Like, not the biggest of places, but as I said, it had charm and it was nice to walk by. Whitley Bay represents a shift in English life from survival to leisure. A place where people came not to defend or labour, but to escape. It shows how culture evolves once basic needs are met and how identity softens over time. Yeah, this is the place again. I've been to a few times. I really just like to walk along the beachfront. Unfortunately, the weather in this part of the UK is not the best. It's often pretty windy, often quite rainy, quite cloudy. So the beaches are perhaps not the nicest. I have to actually experience it during the summer, in fairness, because I normally am here during the winter, but still lovely.
Of course, it isn't just the locations that make a place a place. As I've always said, it's the people. And in Oxford, the people felt very fragmented, you could say. You know, you didn't always like get on with your neighbours. You didn't always like feel safe walking down the street. You know, there were definitely some challenges to living in Oxford. You know, it definitely didn't always have that friendly vibe. But one thing I've always said about the North is it's got some of the best people in the UK, I would argue. And best is it's a weird word to define, so I'm just going to say, when I say that, I mean some of the more honest people. I mean, while I've been back, every time I've been in the shop, every time I've gone down a pub, you know, every time I've just randomly spoken to somebody on the street or a neighbor, or, you know, everyone's been very friendly, very welcoming. You know, they actually have an honest chatter with you, like they're actually interested in your life. The manners on people is something I've kind of missed. People holding doors open for you, people letting you go by, you know, people saying sorry if they accidentally get into your path. You know, it's one of the things that a lot of people see as a weakness in the English, how good we are with manners, but it's quite a strength, really, to have that respect for other people. The problem is when that respect gets abused, which is something we're seeing a lot in the current state of affairs. But this warmth of people, it's something quite special. You know, you really feel like there's a community. When you go into a pub, you see, you know, families, you see friends, you see everyone chatting away, you know, they like a good natter. You know, unfortunately the prices are a bit higher than I remember. But, you know, another thing I've really loved while being back is the English food. Now, a lot of people, they like to insult British food. You know, they say it has no flavour, we don't use spices, etc., etc. All the usual jibes. I get it from the Poles, I get it from the Indians, I get it from everyone. But actually, I've really missed English food, and it's been really nice to kind of get stuck in. Because in my opinion, an English fry-up is one of the best breakfasts you can have. You know, so I've had a few English breakfasts. English sausages, bacon, oh, glorious stuff. Of course, not for the Muslims, but, you know, for the real Brits, yeah, Beautiful, beautiful food. Even like some of the sweets and the snack foods, I think of some of the crisps and stuff that you get over here that you don't get in Poland. Stuff like licorice, all sorts. Lucozade, one of my favorite survival drinks. Yeah. And then all the, the nice like pub food, your toad in the hole, your roast dinners. Yeah. England can cook. Maybe the food isn't as fancy as a lot of people would expect, but it's still there. And it's still nice to experience it. I think if you don't miss the food you have from back home, then you never really had a connection to the place where you come from. But yeah, finish up this section. The culture, the people, the food, it all plays nicely together and really kind of shows like a proper sense of proper sense of what? Proper sense of community, respect, fairness. And before I forget, there's also a pretty decent level of high trust once you get out of the cities. You see, kids playing in parks, without severe supervision. You see people leaving stuff outside their house, not worrying too much about anyone going and nabbing it. You see, people opening up to each other, being honest with each other, real with each other. And you just, it's quite heartwarming, really, to see people that genuinely care about other people. And one thing Northumbria has become is a bit of a refuge. As more and more people are fleeing the south of the country or fleeing the big cities, a lot more people are moving out to the countryside. And I think they're doing it subconsciously because they want to have that old England that we seem to have lost. They want to feel safe. They want to be surrounded by their own people. And they want a quiet life. They don't want this hustle and bustle of the cities that you're always stuck in. And having lived in Warsaw for 8 years, it's been very nice for me to just get away and experience that bit of the countryside, get some fresh air, quieter streets. Sadly, still too many cars, but never mind. Yeah, certainly places like Northumbria, they're maybe not the most polished. They may not have the most beautiful buildings, but it has a kind of rugged quality. It's reflected in the people, it's reflected in the kind of frankness that people have for life. They feel much freer to kind of be themselves, to talk about the issues that matter to them. I've encountered this talking with my neighbour a lot, going down the pub and hammering out ideas about policy and things that will help to fix the UK. Because the thing is, the UK, it does need fixing, despite what a lot of people in London might say. We are a very divided country, and we're divided on pretty much every level, whether it be, man versus woman, young versus old, rich versus poor, nation versus nation, religion versus religion. You think of anything that separates a people, that classifies a people, it's been turned into a battleground. And you see on the news, you see in what people are saying, that everyone's fighting for their part. And an interesting point that is repeatedly said on things like Lotus Eaters is, if we're talking about that battleground between those who are indigenous to this country, you know, your proper English, those with heritage here, they don't have anywhere to go. But if you talk about some of the people that have come to this country and decided, rather than integrating, that they were just going to take their own country here, they always have a country to go back to. Northumbria is a clear demonstration of why England needs to be preserved, its people need to be preserved. And the fact that we're even having a debate about why England deserves to be England is, well, it's a symptom of the cancer that is spread through society, spread by politicians who, well, have businesses in their back pocket, who only care about money, power, fame, a class that's been corrupted by greed, who have sown this division. And they've used all kinds of means to do it. You know, we look at like the media now, and you know, places like the BBC, for example, ITV, rather than actually being reputable journalists, on the large part, they're mouthpieces for the establishment now, defending everything that they do, no matter how twisted the logic is, defending the extermination of a people, which is what we're very slowly seeing happen. And unless England truly wakes up, nice areas like this are not going to stay nice for much longer. And even though I may not live in England anymore, it's still very important to me. It's where I come from. It's my people, my family, my heritage. And I care a very big deal about that. As much as I love Poland, it will never quite be England to me. Doesn't mean that either one is better than the other. A lot of people say that Poland's a bit of a utopia, but what you're seeing in Poland is what England used to be like before, well, twisted ideologies got into people's heads and people started being filled with hate instead of care, when people started thinking of themselves instead of others, when people started caring more about how many likes they got on Instagram than holding a door open for somebody else. And this is something that when you're in the cities, it feels like England's lost something. It feels like some kind of corporate shell, you know? It's all about the latest shop. I was walking down one street actually in Newcastle, and it was quite bizarre to me. At the top end of the street, you had some chaps from Africa. Don't know where in Africa, but you know, clearly they were from Africa. And they were preaching about Christ. And that was, you know, it was kind of cool. It was like, nice. You know, we need a black pope. We need a based African pope for sure. Because they actually still believe in the church. But then I go a little further down the road, and you see these two English guys preaching about Palestine with their megaphones. And I'm like, oh my God. It was a very clear demonstration of how England's lost its way. No matter what you think about the conflict, England is a Christian country. And we should be seeing English people standing up for Christ, not caring about following causes which have got nothing to do with us. But yeah, so this has been my little ramble about Northumberland. I hope you've enjoyed seeing a bit of my heritage. And very soon I'll be back in Poland, exploring the country once more. And I haven't been slow on videos because, like, I haven't had the content. I've been slow on videos because I've been trying to get as much done back here as I can before I go. So, thank you very much for watching. Please give me a like, and we will see each other soon. Do zobaczenia.